Well, I'm doing something a little simpler today. The last few times I tried to record, I ended up either running out of time or running out of space on my phone. So I missed a few things here and there. But it is time to look a little bit on Crane from Kung Fu Panda. The colors on Crane are very simple and understated. So I don't want to overdo this, but I am starting with a crystal blue color, which is actually not quite the color of his pants. My hunch is that I'm going to overshoot it, and eventually I'm going to make these things darker. So we're going to start with them a little bit lighter than the necessary color. I did have a darker blue that I thought maybe would work for the pants, but I just didn't want to risk everything coming out black. So we're going to start with a lighter blue and see how it looks. And if it doesn't look quite right, I don't think it'll be that difficult to darken it down. So just going to try. He wears blue pants, and then everything else is a different assorted grays and blues. And his feathers, of course, are white and gray. So I want to minimize the spillover onto other parts of the model here. But it doesn't matter too much because I can cover everything back up. Yeah, I don't think Crane is anyone's favorite Kung Fu Panda character. I don't even know if he'll get picked much in the game this is for. But those are kind of my favorite characters to paint. You know, the side character that you don't even think about until you have to put together the model, you know. Like, in my Star Wars Legion painting, I really enjoyed some of the random, you know, Imperial officers or Stormtrooper captains or people who aren't, you know, big headline getters, not the big characters in the movie. I find for some reason I always prefer to play those on the tabletop games. In fact, I prefer to play them to the named characters because something just feels wrong and trivializing about putting a big important figure on the board for the purposes of a game. And you know, this is I'm thinking even more about that as I begin my first very limited foray into historical wargaming. In that, you know, I'm given the opportunity to put real people from history on the table, and something within me just says, no, don't do that. That's crazy. Just paint no names. And it's funny because that is the exact same inclination that I have in fictional games as well. You know, I like generic characters because something about them feels more plausible and real for the tabletop setting. But even so, when I do have named characters, the more minor they are, the better. I like playing with Veers more than Vader. I don't know why. Also, it just seems, something just seems a little bit twisted about showing up to a tournament and there being 5 or 6 Darth Vaders out. Because something in the back of my head says, wait a second, there should only be one. I can't quiet that voice. It's a childlike inability to turn off my suspension of disbelief. Anyway, that's what I think about as I paint Crane here. I imagine if I were in the middle of playing a game of Kung Fu Panda, I might prefer to play Crane to Poe. And I don't fully know why. Maybe it's nothing. Anyway, it's just kind of a general philosophy to wargaming that I don't really have a great reason for. It just is what it is. Okay, so getting some base coat colors on there. It's coming together a little bit. We need, and this is another risky part. For most of the imagery, I can see his neck is black but I don't think black is going to look quite right here. So I'm going to start with a dark blue, maybe darken it down a little bit and see where we end up. This ultramarine blue is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite colors after the HeroScape paint job that I recorded some of. Let's see. Maybe at the end of this I'll do an update on those figures, but let's first see what Crane looks like with a deep blue neck first. And then we'll see how much we need to darken that down to match the black that he actually has. Yeah, it's maybe not quite dark enough, which is fine. Again, as I said before, it's fairly trivial to darken down. The color matching has been hard for me here because it's a movie I haven't paid a ton of attention to the aesthetics of in my life, you know. Star Wars, I watched that as a kid. I filled the margins of my notes with those figures through school. I think a lot about the colors of Stormtrooper armor. Kung Fu Panda figures, not as much. I haven't spent as much time thinking about them. So it makes painting them a bit of a different kind of challenge. But it's not like, it's not one of those properties where the colors don't matter. And quite the opposite, in fact. It is vital that these characters immediately communicate their identity on the table. Which means that I do have to pay attention to color. Okay, so here's how it's coming along so far. It's all gonna have to be darker. But it is working, I think. I'm probably just gonna liberally stain it with a wash or a glaze or something just to darken it down, but we'll see. Let's just finish up with the major colors on there and see what it looks like. Okay, so I struggle with what to do with the beak. Because beaks on birds are I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna start with actually a flesh tone, because the flesh tone underlying color is actually an orange, which makes me think that it will communicate beak pretty well, and if it doesn't, I can highlight with orange, and then it really will. So we'll see. Let's see what we can make of this color here. Get the right consistency this time, because if I don't, it's just going to look bad. 9 times out of 10, people overstate the importance of getting a perfect consistency, but this one time I'll give them the point where it matters for something weird and thin like this beak. Okay, I think this color is actually going to work. It is indeed an orange base. I probably will also end up putting some kind of more orange highlight on it, but for now, this is going to communicate beak pretty well, I think. I'm also just going to go ahead and put some on his legs, because his legs are more or less the same color as his beak. It is funny though, it is sort of communicating flesh right now, which is not exactly what I want. But again, I think I will be able to fix that with the correct orange color. That's a question for next time, once he's had some time to dry. As for how I can get the color to what it needs to be. coming together. Starting to look more bird-like. I'm actually going to let him dry. Give him some time to return to the paintable state. And then very briefly, I'm just going to look at what else needs to be done on these guys. So when I last was painting these guys, I was adding armor details to them. Kind of a... It's actually a metallic paint in there, those browns, but it's not really communicating that. So what I need to do is, well, first of all, the more basic thing I need to do is I just need to make the weapons look like weapons. So we're going to use a speed paint for this. We're going to use a polished silver speed paint. Because I want it to be a dark, sinister looking color, but I do want it to still communicate as a pretty basic silver. Metallic speed paints are very weird. I don't know if you can see this, but the metal runs. You can probably see it moving. You can see the... I'm not sure I'm sold on metallic speed paints, just because look how much movement there is. I didn't water this down at all. This is straight out of the bottle, right? But look, I can turn it upside down and it's just going to flow. It doesn't create, I don't know. I think it would work over white better than I'm painting it over dark blue. It's going to take several coats, which is not ideal for a speed paint, right? Just to not look weird. Anyway, again, I know you're probably thinking, well, that's because you're painting it over a dark color. They're not made to go over dark colors. But, I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I'm just going to keep doing this with these guys. They're supposed to look sinister, you know? The speed paint just flows in really weird ways over this. Normally you use a speed paint to get like gradients or built-in fake highlights, needle highlights or something. But with a metallic, you don't really want that, you know? The way that light interacts with metals is so weird that it's not really a matter of wanting gradients and highlights in the normal way. What you want is reflections. And so I might just have to manually put some of those on there later, which sort of contradicts the general idea of speed painting. The one thing I do like about these speed paints, though, is that they actually go on really nicely through an airbrush. But I'm not doing airbrush painting this morning, so not the right choice for the job. Anyway, they'll work. It's just going to take a little bit more effort to get the look that I want, which is okay. It will be good by the time it's done. Just going to take a few coats. Okay, we'll let that all dry and do something with it later.